Welcome to the Impact Learning Visionaries podcast, where we celebrate the unsung heroes of the learning and development industry. As always, we'll be bringing some laughter and a bit of fun along the way, but more importantly, you'll get some incredible insights, key lessons, and unique perspectives on everything related and possibly unrelated to training and development. Let's get this show on the road. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Impact Learning Visionaries podcast. Today we have with us Massimiliano Melis, who is the COO and CTO of two innovative startups, Aitem, AITEM, which is a high-tech startup focused on optimizing business performance by harnessing the power of artificial intelligence. And the second startup is an organization called TO.TEM, Totem, which is a brand new and disruptive micro-mobility brand. As an engineer and innovator, Massimiliano is able to harness the power of logic and creativity, and in a similar fashion to me, strongly believes that innovation can only really come from solving true customer pain points, and not, as we often tend to do, is try and find a solution to the technology. But rather help the technology solve the problem. So solving real business problems. Massimiliano, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for welcoming in the podcast.
So I guess just to kind of touch base, everybody is obviously very interested and excited, and it's the buzzword of the year. And it's great to have someone who's actually doing practical stuff with artificial intelligence and solving real business problems. So let's start there and just tell us a little bit about, the kind of stuff that you're busy with.
Yeah, of course. Thanks. So in Aitem, actually we started our AI journey in 2020 when we decided to fund the company, to incorporate the company. Actually, everything started with the COVID because we were dealing with AI since several years. Our experience comes from the autonomous drive, from working in the automotive side. We had several patents already somehow in the pocket. The COVID came and we thought, okay, why don't we use it somehow to solve some issues and helping our humanity right now to tackle the COVID. So we deployed pretty quickly a software that was capable to solve and understand whether you were having COVID from chest X-ray, working on true data, not very cleaned, but actually in the hospital. And then after having deployed that, and we have seen which was the impact actually, we decided to create Aitem and start working on several fields. Today, basically 3 years later, we have three main areas where we are working in the artificial intelligence space. And why three? Because somehow we are a startup, but different kind of startup in the sense that we want to be self-sustaining. This is why now we are concentrating with our branded products in the artificial intelligence for the veterinary field, while we keep creating the needed amount of cash and work also in the industrial part. So that coming from this industry, for us it's pretty easy. And so we develop industrial solution, but also veterinary solution, keeping in mind as a long-term focus also the medical part, because there for sure we see a great potential for impacting and helping.
So you said you've been in AI since 2020, and obviously everybody's like got quite a polarized view of AI at the moment, which is obviously generative AI. But there's lots of different types of AI. There's narrow AI, and there's kind of different use cases. So just for the benefit of the audience, do you want to just share specifically what type of AI you guys are using? It seems like a lot of kind of imaging, like kind of computer vision type stuff that you guys are doing.
Yes, actually we have three main assets in the company. One is for sure computer vision. That is one of the first that we developed, and we have patents that are covering new technologies that we developed that are pretty powerful and multi-purpose. Actually, we are active also in the generative AI space with large language models because what we develop, especially in the veterinary field, uses LLMs in order to interact with user. And then we have a deep expertise, let's say, in machine learning in general, because we are capable to create a very complex model from a huge amount of data. As mentioned before, we are still active also in the medical, even if for longer term. An example of how we apply the machine learning is actually developing models from proteomics, for instance, for cancer prediction.
And I mean, just before we get onto any kind of the learning stuff, I guess, having the opportunity to speak to someone who's got real practical hands-on knowledge of using AI, what is your take on the next few years? How do you see this technology shaping the businesses and industries that we work in? I mean, obviously you're hoping to make an impact on the veterinary industry and on the medical industry. And others. But I mean, where are you seeing the kind of the big, broad changes that we are going to kind of be like the seismic shifts that everybody's expecting the industry to start having to deal with?
Sure. What I think is that for sure it's the most powerful tool since age that we are having, and it's an opportunity. I do see it helping humans, actually augmenting humans is what I like to say, in improving accuracy and productivity. Because at the end of the day, many are scared, and this is also why I do think that it's important how the AI is explained tough to people and so on, because actually it will not replace people. It will augment what humans will do. It will increase our accuracy. It will help us in focusing on a very specific, important task rather than doing something that can be automatized and can be executed much more easily by an AI.
So I like that word augmented, because I often think that people tend to get over fixated on artificial intelligence and the robot overlords and kind of the end of the worlds,
scenario.
Yeah, the singularity or whatever they're kind of calling it. But I don't think we talk often enough about augmented intelligence and the real kind of like intersection of human and AI. And is that kind of the type of work that you guys are focusing a lot on?
Yes, for sure. Actually, the product that, for instance, we are developing for the veterinary field is called Laika, and it's actually an agent that augments the veterinarian job. If you look at the market, 2 million pets die every year because of misdiagnosis, but not because the veterinary is wrong. It's just because they are overloaded and they cannot focus on what they love, that is the pet and their profession. AI can help them tackling issues, solving issues, diagnosing much better the diseases. So with this respect, it's the same for the human medical field or for the industrial field. Really, the key should be how can we leverage this powerful technology that is a new technology in order to improve what we are doing in a more efficient and faster way.
Okay. Now that does create quite a fascinating lens when it comes to the kind of learning conversation, because coming back to that technology solving real business problems, and I'm also a big fan of that, is the other kind of corollary to that is being like asking the right questions and making sure you're solving the right thing. And a lot of people are talking future of work and the kind of learning needs to change, and we need to be more adaptable to kind of deal with this future world of work and the seismic shifts that technology is creating. And I think the unique perspective that you've brought is that, we've also, when it comes to understanding the future and understanding how we need to evolve in terms of how we deal with this future world of artificial intelligence and augmented intelligence, is also asking the questions of what we need to be doing to, in terms of learnings, to be able to function in that world. And a good example of the one that you've just given, and I kind of use this as a hypothetical example, is, as technology is starting to kind of diagnose far more accurately than humans can, especially given the load of work and kind of tests that they have to go through manually, is, now this is a great example. So as a veterinarian, do you sit there and go and study diagnostics, as and add as a specialization to your existing kind of toolkit? Or do you say, actually, the artificial intelligence has got that part, and it now resets the kind of approach that I need to take to actually become more efficient and productive as a veterinarian? You kind of see that?
Yes, actually, what I think is that at the end of the day, everyone should know what is behind. So there should be, and this, for instance, something that we are planning to do with the University of Veterinary. There should be a knowledge in order to understand why and what the AI is doing. To me, the professional, the veterinaries should anyhow be capable to analyze, to detect, to diagnose, because it's one key part. The point is, if you can have a tool that is capable to see something that your eye cannot, something that came to my mind, not in the veterinary, but in another, in the medical field. It's a piece of work that we did 1.5 years ago together with an hospital in Belgium related to aneurysms. It's impressive to see that you can detect aneurysms 5-6 years in advance if you are capable to see a very small thing in the brain CT scan that you can barely see with your eye. So the point is, you must be capable to diagnose. So I think you should have that knowledge. You should know how the AI works, why it's taking some decisions, but then you should leverage it because it can see something that you cannot. But then you can interpret it. So to me, this is why I always speak about augmenting humans' capability, because you cannot lose the knowledge. You should be teach about it. But then if you have something that is doing that much faster, that's a pro. It's like using Excel. I mean, we can do some divisions, some multiplications, but we use Excel. So we know what is doing, but then Excel improves our efficiency. So very raw world. This is also another example.
Okay. So I guess what you're talking about is more understanding the body of knowledge as opposed to understanding the AI, because I think that the challenge that most people see with AI is the machine learning problem, right? The neural network model is the moment we have 2 or 3 points of data, it's still like within human kind of capability to understand it. But the more you go 6, 7, 8 kind of inputs, the computations become so complex that people stop understanding the model and they stop understanding how it came to the conclusion it came to, and then it gets more into the stage of testing the model to make sure that conceptually it's making sense. So with artificial intelligence and it's starting to augment, I suspect that people are going to start trusting the technology without actually asking questions. Which is, it seems to be largely what technology has done. You don't like second guess your GPS unless you really, really know the route well and it's taking you down a very strange route. But generally we tend to rely on technology to the point where once it's settled into our daily lives, it becomes almost invisible. And
Yes.
yeah,
Even if what I think is that during your learning path, you should understand why. So for sure, you will never be capable to understand what is behind neural networks of millions of parameters. So in ChatGPT-4, no one will understand what is inside, but you should have learned it in the past what it means, how is it, but then for sure you will also get guidance from the technology. Otherwise, you will miss the benefit to it.
okay. So for kind of the companies that are looking to adopt your technology, like looking at vets or at medical practices who are looking to start utilizing your AI applications, what is that journey generally tend to look like? Where do you see the resistance? Where do you see maybe people pushing back a little bit, not necessarily kind of being comfortable with that technology? Or do you not see that at all? Are people just embracing it with open arms and saying, bring more AI? How are you kind of observing that at the moment?
So let's say, as mentioned at the beginning, we have somehow three areas. Let's say two, because veterinary and medical are pretty similar, and then we have the industrial. So in the industrial, it's much more easier. Actually, if people know about the fact that you can use AI, they are actually asking you, okay, let's use it because it can improve the process and so on. So the adoption is much more easier. Instead, in the medical or veterinary field, this is actually not the case at the beginning. There is some skepticism. Why? Because somehow there is the fear that the physician, the veterinary, is somehow replaced by the machine. And this is why, again, I do see a great importance on how do you communicate, how do you teach to them what is the AI, what is capable to do, in order to somehow remove the reluctancy, because at the end of the day, they are scientists too, they are veterinaries, they studied some scientific part that is related to animal body or human body. So at the end of the day, if they are teached on what really they are doing, what they are getting, then they will be less reluctant. So this is why I do think that the learning path is extremely important, because especially I'm seeing really the difference in the adoption from young physicians or veterinaries versus old, because for sure, it's something brand new. The adoption of young people is much easier because they are more digitized, especially the veterinaries are highly digitized, but maybe not that used to use user interfaces, stuff like this. And so it's extremely important to use the learning path in order to solve this issue. This is why we are discussing with some universities in order to bring the AI since the university already in their learning path, so that they can get used to it, they can understand what is being doing, because we are seeing that there is a little part of reluctance.
Yeah. And how are the universities, I mean, besides, I guess, just using it as a tool in the learning journey of universities, are you seeing any kind of more significant changes to kind of people's learning journeys, let me kind of think about how to rephrase the question. So historically we've dealt with tools. I mean, for veterinarians, X-rays have been an example of a tool. Blood tests have been an example of a tool. Is AI just another blood test, or is it just another kind of X-ray that we're kind of making a meal out of, but is ultimately just going to end up being a diagnostic tool that we use as another tool in our tool belt? Or do you think that this technology is going to become far more significant in the way that we kind of function as medical professionals? I mean, I'm taking the kind of industrial one out, because I think that is probably a simpler one to kind of conceptualize. But when it comes to human beings, I think that's where the the kind of the problem sits, is this augmentation of human beings with artificial intelligence. So is it just a tool? Is it more than a tool? Do you see it fundamentally changing the way that we kind of practice, the way that we learn to master our practices?
I think that is more than a tool. What I see in these years passing is actually that just the statistics, training, stuff like this are increasing also in that faculties. It's more than a tool because at the end of the day, I think that the AI standalone can't do nothing because needs the domain expertise. And then it's more than a tool because it requires an interaction. And this is why I think that it's for sure also a tool, but it's more than a tool because it's, let's say, sort of your buddy AI agent, your a sort of colleague. It's something that is helping you thanks also to your knowledge. So it's not just an X-ray machine that you press the button, does the X-ray, and then you do something. It's helping you thanks to the fact that you helped it in order to be trained.
So, I mean, that part, I guess, is makes sense because, the one thing about AI is it's constantly learning from its experiences. But I guess part of that learning from experiences is this concept of constantly being trained, and adapting to, I guess, kind of edge cases and things that it hasn't been trained to do before. So I guess in a sense, that's where the importance of or maybe the crux of this thing and the learning comes in is how at the moment do you perceive people dealing with the outlier situations where the AI has either picked something up that is erroneous or hasn't picked something up that the human has picked up, and how does that feedback loop? How do you see it working at the moment?
You know what? It's we experienced something similar when we started during the COVID. With our tool, in the first months of the COVID, we did an interesting evaluation together with the University of Torino that was showing that in the first months, our AI model was capable of having 90% accuracy. That you can say, okay, we are having 10% missing and wrong results. Doctors were having 60% accuracy. So the point is it helping or not? The same, I used to work in the automotive. The same is happening with the autonomous drive. There is this dramatic fear of this autonomous AI-guided vehicles that can create issues, can have a crash. But are we decreasing the crashes and the issues? Then it's good. So I think that it's a matter, again, also of how people learn about AI, because if the efficiency is improving, for sure you cannot have 100% correct system. And so the point is to accept that if it's improving what I'm doing, it's anyhow better. And the key point is being know since the beginning that the system may fail, accept it, and have the knowledge to understand whether that can be an outlier, and that is actually where the human being can play a role in order to understand and adjust. So this is also a key part of the work that should be done, let's say, together by human and AI, in the sense that it's a tool that we know that can help, can improve, but there is always our interpretation.
Yeah, I think that's a really fascinating part, because at the end of the day, no one's going to hold, and this is the self-driving issue, right? No one's going to hold AI responsible because it's just a logically programmed kind of emotionless entity. So if it hits someone in traffic, that's the dilemma. That's the kind of big issue. in this field where we're kind of augmenting tools and interactions using AI, I guess, at the end of the day, no doctor or veterinarian would be able to say, well, sorry, man, the AI didn't pick that up. They're still, at the end of the day, the ones who are going to be accountable and responsible if they get it wrong. So I guess the kind of the big issue here is if AI gets it right 90% of the time. So there's actually two issues here that I'm actually quite fascinated about. In technology, and especially in security, there's this kind of this philosophy called the 20 doors philosophy. And that is that from a computer security perspective, if I have a house with 20 doors, 19 of them are locked and one of them is unlocked, is that house like 95% secure, or is it 0% secure? And obviously it's kind of like a philosophical dilemma. But in the same way that 10% differential presents a similar type of philosophical debate is, if I misdiagnose somebody and I start to rely too much on the technology, and I could have intervened and actually diagnosed that, and that overlap of 60% and 90%, and that missing 10%, some of it, the 60% that the guys working on the diagnostics now could have potentially picked up. It's going to be an interesting kind of I suppose, ethical debate as well. Is, human nature will essentially say over time, as we start to see the technology get things right, like 90% of the time, human nature would suggest we're going to take our foot off the gas a little bit and just trust the technology to be right 100% of the time, even though in the background we know it's only 90%. So it's for me, it's part of the challenge is helping people almost learn and understand how they need to function to augment artificial intelligence. They don't necessarily maybe need to learn how artificial intelligence works, but they need to learn how to work efficiently with augmented intelligence, and almost learn about what the implications are when you start using artificial intelligence and trying to kind of solve that problem. I mean, does any of that kind of make sense? Am I just babbling? Do you see that as a challenge? I mean, how are you kind of perceiving that when people use artificial intelligence, that is either going to change their approach to things, but B, kind of, do you see them using artificial intelligence needing to kind of learn what that realistically means, and the responsibility that we have to take on board when we're using this type of technology?
No, yes. At the end of the day, I agree with what you just said. It's important for sure. People will not everybody will know what is inside, but it's extremely important to understand how and how it can help. Being conscious that it can drive to mistake, but that is anyhow improving. Actually, what I see, but maybe is more in these days where there is a lot of hype about the generative AI, is that the sensationalism of the news is also creating a bit of fear, because there is the fear that AI will overcome, there will be the singularity, and everything else will change. There are a few people that are tweaking on ChatGPT and say, "Oh, now it's madness. They are the AI would like to kill us." Everyone. So it's really a matter of proper information. In order to have the people knowing what it is. I mean, I think that even when the car was invented, there was the same. People was not looking for the car. The car was too fast, too dangerous, and so on. At the end of the day, today we are all using cars. So every time that you have a new technology, there is this dilemma. Most probably, the fast pace at which the AI is evolving maybe is scaring a little more, because it's for sure much faster than what happened so far. But definitely, I agree with you about the level of how you should inform people so that they know how it can help, what can do, what we can do together.
And I guess last question from my side before I close out with my normal 2 closing questions is it kind of seems to me from a learning perspective that we're in for another kind of seismic shift to the same level that maybe the internet, the impact the internet had on this industry is, I like when I did my master's, I remember consciously thinking, thank God for the internet, because trying to do this research, going to a library and trying to figure out the Dewey Decimal System would be a punishment worse than death. But also realize that it's just because it's the new normal, right? And it's how we perceive the world and how we accept the world. Looking kind of fast forwarding to, some might even suggest 5 years is too long, but kind of looking at the way that artificial intelligence might be as game-changing as the internet. How are you seeing this kind of impacting our daily lives, the way that we learn, the way that we kind of pick up knowledge, whether we even need to pick up knowledge? I guess the internet has made our rote knowledge less important because it's at the other side of a Google kind of query. But how is artificial intelligence going to impact, or do you perceive it's going to impact us the way that maybe the internet did?
For sure, I think it's really a matter of improvement of the efficiencies of all the tasks that we are doing, because so the point is, we have the web, we have Google, we can search. With the AI, you can just ask. So you don't need to search. You can ask directly which is the question and get the answer. So it's and to me this is an efficiency improvement at the end of the day, because you can have the information maybe with all the link then later to go deeper. So to me, really this would be the impact. And the other impact that I see is that there are many jobs that are boring, that no one would like also to do, that can be somehow replaced, giving the possibility to people to do something that has a higher value and can increase the motivation. So this is how I see it may impact. And I also for sure think personally that the next big step would be when the quantum computing will be really reliable. Quantum computing plus AI will be the next big quantum leap, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating world that I think we're about to head into, and yeah, I kind of, going back to something you said there, which is about, we have a lot of people doing quite boring jobs that can be easily automated. And I guess this is what the Industrial Revolution did, right? Is it prevented us from having jobs where people screwed tooth caps on toothpaste kind of tubes. But I feel like the big challenge of this next evolution is that the jobs of the future need, they rely on a lot of critical thinking skills. And it's going to be fascinating to see if all of us as a species adapt to all becoming critical thinkers, because there's something very very romantic, I guess, about just being in a job which is quite repetitive, and you bring home your salary every single month, and you focus on your kind of your personal life, your happiness, your relationships, and some people just aren't motivated by challenges at work. And I guess it's going to be fascinating to see the kind of impact that's going to have on us as we start to see more and more automation. The next kind of big seismic industrial revolution, for want of a better term, and how that's going to shape the world we live in. Interesting stuff. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
All right. So seeing we're talking very much about artificial intelligence today, I always like to kind of offer a little bit of a pearl of wisdom from the wisdom of our guest. So my question for you is putting yourself into the shoes of someone who is, in an organization that is adopting more and more artificial intelligence and dealing with the implications of people feeling quite anxious about that, wondering about whether they will still be able to function efficiently, and having to kind of take on that task of balancing the human element with the adoption of technology. And often this sits inside the kind of learning and development department, human resources department. What advice would you give to someone who's kind of sitting in that space where they're looking at this new technology coming into the organization? I think that's a reality today, and having to think about how to deal with it at a human level with the people in the organization.
What I would strongly encourage to do, that is actually what we are doing also in our startups, is explain what is coming and explain how to use it in order to do much better what you were struggling to do before. So it's like if you were a practical example could be if I have to look for prospects in order to sell, and I'm in the sales department, and now I can use AI to find all the prospects automatically in, 1 minute rather than 50 minutes. The other 49 minutes can be used to call the people. And if there is the AI that can directly call the people, then I can improve in setting up the strategy. So it's really explain what you can do, leverage what is coming. So see that as an opportunity, because you can focus on doing stuff much more better and faster.
And of course, the funny part of that is that when you go to that second part is that the AI can make the call for you. It's only a matter of time before we have AI speaking to other AIs.
Yeah. And then could buy the product.
Yes. And like suddenly you've bought a whole bunch of stuff and you're like, where'd that come from? So the final question is we always ask our guests to share with us a book or a podcast or something that they've kind of read or kind of listened to or experienced recently that had an impact on them. Just to kind of share something. It could be anything. That's like you've kind of had an epiphany or an aha moment recently.
Actually, it's not related to AI at all.
Okay, that's good.
But I think it's one of the best book that I read. That is Never Split the Difference. It's a negotiation book that I found pretty interesting because it actually tells you actual situations where a negotiator of the FBI was when there were robbing issues, and so it was pretty interesting. And basically, starting from the learning, he started teaching how to negotiate, and I'm actually applying this in my daily life for anything, because I do see a great value. So I would encourage anyone to read it. Actually, also in the company, I'm pushing it to everybody because it's really something that opens up your mind and can help you seeing stuff from the other way around and do things better.
That's a great book, and I've read it. And actually, the biggest epiphany I had when I went through my negotiation was it's easier to negotiate with someone else who's an expert at negotiation than to negotiate with someone who doesn't know how negotiation works, which sounds very counterintuitive because, I guess people would say, oh, there's a sucker, like born every minute. And but it's surprising how much more effective the negotiation is when you're actually across the table from someone who has skills in it as well. So, yeah, great book. Love it. Love the reference. Thank you very much for sharing, and thank you very much for joining us today. It was a fascinating journey into understanding AI a little bit better from a practitioner who is actually doing AI and not just playing around with ChatGPT 4. So really, really appreciated your insights and even the kind of touch on how this might impact us as we all move into this world, how it might influence the way that we learn. And I think also the way that, taking some of the fears away is that artificial intelligence really becomes powerful when humans are used in conjunction and becomes an augmented as opposed to a replacement experience. So thank you, Massimiliano. It was really great to have you.
Thanks a lot to you, Jason. Really appreciate it. It was a great opportunity, and it was a very interesting discussion. Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Impact Learning Visionaries. If you found it interesting or helpful, please subscribe by clicking on the button down below so you don't miss our next one. Also, be sure to check out our Reality Bites blog for more information on how technology is aiding in learning development. Links are all in the description below. Go check it out. Thanks a lot. Bye.